Welcome to Arlandriaspeaks podcast, and I'm your host, Arlandriaspeaks, aka Faith, author, soon to be personal development coach, and coffee addict. I'm determined to help you unlock all the parts of yourself that you're afraid of, change your perspective on yourself and life, and build a foundation of trust within. This podcast is all about dropping the veil, entering you into a new reality of spirituality, personal development, and relationships. Get ready to dive into the deeper parts of yourself as we embark on a journey to uncover the layers and reaching the highest version within. Welcome back to the podcast, my beautiful people. It is Arlandria Speaks, aka Faith, and today I have a wonderful and beautiful guest, and her name is Tiffany Clark. She is actually a career strategist, and I wanted to invite her to the podcast to talk a little bit about what the job search is like, what specifically that she does, and just get to know more about her and who she is and how she feels about spirituality as well.
Awesome. I'm excited.
Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Me too. So I really just wanted to get into firstly, just who you are, what you're about, and what kind of steps that you took to get to where you are now.
Awesome. The who I am question is always really interesting because you could answer in 1,000 ways, especially. But no, so I am a lot of different things. I like to think of myself as a multi-passionate. I have a lot of different interests, specifically creatively, but also professionally. Personally, I like to bake. I like to be creative in that way and also paint. I want to learn how to be creative in other ways, like how to dance, but that's another story. And professionally, I've worked in a few different spaces, but ultimately it's always been connected through education, just sharing knowledge. So I started out my career in undergrad. I actually thought I was going to be a nurse. And then it just, the biology, the chemistry, it wasn't for me. Ultimately, I ended up working at the Career Service Center. And that's where I learned how to write resumes and help other students with their own job search. And it was just an interesting position to be in as a student myself. So when I graduated, I was a little lost and I was like, okay, I can use this experience. So I became a recruiter. That was short-lived. And then I ultimately wanted to get my master's degree so I can explore a little bit more in the education space. So I ended up working for a university that paid for my master's degree. And then I worked as a career advisor at the time. So I got to work with business students and help them transition from undergrad into their full-time jobs. And I got to develop curriculum on how to help them transition. So That's an incredible experience, but I still have a creative itch. So I wanted to leave the education space. And then there's a lot of things I could say about the corruption in the education space. I still liked working with the students, but obviously I wanted to kind of explore a little bit more of my own interest as well. So I always enjoyed writing, and I like to help serve needs. So I ultimately discovered the UX user experience space, especially when tech was booming a few years ago. So I made a transition from working in education into user experience writing. So that's what I do now. So I'm a user experience writer, but I'm also a career strategist and career coach. So that's just a lot of background, but that's a little bit about me.
Thank you for sharing that.
My short version. Thank you.
I mean, I feel like everybody has so many different sides to them because when you have different passions and different hobbies and interests, they kind of collide though. Eventually they end up get all that experience kind of shapes who you are, but who you are is really broad. So I'm glad that you talked about everything, not just oh yeah, this is what I do, but this is who I am. I think that was cool.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, because in America specifically, and I think other countries find it interesting that we always answer that question as what we do instead of what we enjoy. I think in Europe, they always ask people what vacation do you have coming up? Or what do you enjoy doing rather than how do you make your money? But in the US, it's how do you make your money? And that's the only thing that matters. And it's not.
Yes. That is the first question I feel people in America definitely ask when you first meet them. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, it shouldn't be like that at all.
Definitely not. So diving deeper into the career side of things, like what would you define specifically as a career strategist?
So there's a lot of different, I think, aspects of career development or like finding someone to help with your career. I perceive a career strategist as someone who kind of has a bird's eye view of the career development landscape and how to help someone navigate their career. So
Mm-hmm.
throughout my experiences, I've had a lot of different exposure with that space. So as I said, I started off as a resume writer and I worked on and off as a resume writer, but I also was able to develop e-learning and in-person learning on career topics. I was a career advisor, and that's a little bit different than a career coach. And then I was also a consultant. So I help people like with 5 to 15 years experience in a lot of different
Wow.
industries. So I think all that to say that I think it just has to do with the diverse experiences and the perspective that a career coach can have and help to inform you on your career. So, rather than like helping you get just one job, it's, this is maybe how you can reflect on your past experiences and find something that's right for you. And this is what the market's doing and how you could potentially align with what the market's doing and what you enjoy doing. So
Mm.
that's a very convoluted long answer of what a career strategist is
No,
to me.
it's okay. It's interesting to me because I definitely feel like that's something that we need in the world. Mostly because when I meet a lot of people, most people really don't know what their next step is. They don't know what they want to do. They don't really know what they enjoy to transition into a way to having financial income and having that financial freedom. So I feel
Oh,
like it's really important.
oh yeah. Yeah. And especially with how much the job market has changed and is going to change in the future, it
Yes.
makes it even more confusing because not only is it hard for us to do the internal work of like, how do I want to spend my
Right.
time, but what's going on in the market that like can align? And it's just so much overwhelm and so much information. So, that's one of the reasons why I decided to do this because I felt like one, I think more Black and brown people need this type of education and
Yes.
support. And just knowing that there are so many things, especially regarding transferable skills, there's so many things that you can do, and there's so many things that are going to be available, I think, coming up. So I think people need to
Right.
be aware and prepared for those changes.
And I feel like for Black and brown people specifically, it's so overwhelming to really like kind of figure out where you fit. I know it's easier, obviously. I don't want to get into the racial topic of it, but it's definitely harder for us to get into specific careers and do specific things just because of that constant adversity. And being able to have someone to help you navigate that is definitely super helpful, I'm sure. And I'm sure it feels like you have that support to like move in the way that you want to move into a career that you want to with somebody supporting you.
Yeah, exactly. So many there's a lot of statistics on, I forget the numbers, but people with career coaches are more likely to, have an easier time transitioning to the job they want,
Right.
just feel more independently capable of navigating those things on their own afterwards as well. So
Yes.
a great it's a great thing. It's kind of like an odd, like, how can I utilize a career coach to help me? Do I need one or can I just do it on my own? I think it's just like having a mentor or just having friends that have been through it.
Right.
Helpful and strategic to be able to make those changes for yourself.
Right, make those choices. It's similar to even like a lifestyle coach or even like a therapist to a certain degree because
Yeah.
when you're talking about specifically like the workspace, you're able to have somebody to talk about your feelings with and talk about what you want to do moving forward. And I think that's really helpful just because I know how you can have like imposter syndrome or just you just feel stuck in a career because you feel like that's the only choice you have moving forward. And I know many people who do that, who stay in the same field and they're not comfortable with it, but they have that fear that they don't want to take the next step because they don't have enough support with that.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot we could talk about regarding how trauma or past experiences
Yes.
negatively affect your perception, but there's also things in the external world like we don't see the representation that we need or,
Yes, we don't have as many examples.
exactly. So there's just so many different limitations that it's definitely understandable why
Yeah, I feel like it helps us kind of transition into this next question that I have for you, which
Yeah.
basically is, what is Ikigai and how do you find out what yours is?
Yeah. I'm so excited that we get to talk about this.
Me too.
I posted it the other day, and it's great that you like commented on it. And but Ikigai, for those that don't know, it's a Japanese word that essentially means like your life's purpose. I don't speak
Mhm.
Japanese, but parts of it is like life and then like worth or purpose. But it's essentially made up of four different parts, and one is finding what it is that you're good at, finding how things that the world needs, and
Oh,
then
no, you're
finding
fine.
what you love. And then also the last piece, which is really, really important, is what you're actually going to make money doing. And then like at the center of that is what your ikigai might be. So if you could find something that you do really enjoy, but maybe, maybe you're not the best at it. Is it something that you could improve or something that you could strengthen through taking a certification? Or if it is something that you're not exactly excited for, but the world needs it and it pays money, to what extent are you willing to do that job to satisfy? Is that something that you're going to be happy with? And this is something that honestly a lot of career coaches and career strategists spend a lot of time finding clarity with their clients on these things, because when you can find clarity in these different components and actually have a sense of certainty regarding, okay, well, like I don't like this, or I really do like this, but I know that it's not paying well, it really just sets you up to be able to make those decisions. And it's just a really good place to start for anyone who wants to transition or just find satisfaction in life in general, because you spend so much time working, you
At
spend so much
work.
time trying to, yeah, make money or like find your passion. So you should do something that you enjoy, but also something that you can get paid for.
I feel like it's a process of elimination, being able to know how to answer those questions and figure them out. But I also feel like if they don't know, it's a good way for them to explore, even more so from your end. Like if you're like, hey, what do you like enjoy doing? And sometimes people really don't have things that they think about that they actually enjoy that could make them money. So it's definitely I feel like it's definitely a good question to give out, especially when they're looking for their next step in a career.
Yeah. There's so many questions you could really dive into. And that's one of the things I really love. I really love to talk about with people, is like reflecting on little small things that have brought them joy, even outside of work, that they might not have thought of. So if it's, for instance, if you like video games and you're like, well, I don't want to be a video game developer, I don't want to be a video game tester, but maybe you could work for Sony and you'd be a product manager, or you could be
Right.
a content person that helps organize things for Sony, and you get to work within that space, and it brings you joy because you get to see all of the incoming video games that are coming. And that's a super surface level example, but
Yeah, but it's so
there's
smart
so
though
many
because it's
things.
such a small like niche that you're like, you could love this though, and
Yeah,
sometimes people don't think about that. So that's amazing that you can funnel out all of it so you can understand like where that person's coming from to find a job that they feel like they're going to be successful in and enjoy and have passion for.
yeah, exactly. And I think sometimes there's a whole other conversation that stems from that as well. How do I know if I would like that, or how do I know what to search for? And I think that can be a limiting factor. Like it's just the I don't know piece. Like I don't know exactly how to go about searching for the things that I like and how the world might need that. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of what keeps people from searching, or deters people from finding.
Exploring the unknown
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
little, yeah, it's always scary. It's always scary
So
exploring the
scary. It's
unknown.
scary. It's terrifying. But behind that fear is potentially joy and excitement and fulfillment. But
Yes.
it's understandable. I think life is scary.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes.
Yes, I feel like everything, even what I'm trying to do with my career,
Yeah.
there is so much fear there, but like you kind of have to walk in that fear to like see the other side
Yeah.
and step
Well,
forward, you know what I mean? And not be afraid. You got to do it. You got to push for yourself, especially if you want to see more.
yeah, exactly. One thing that my sister and I have been talking about a lot lately, as I've been in my own business journey, is
Right.
it's just like both things are scary, not doing what you want and doing what you want, but
Yes.
it's also scary to imagine that you don't get to see yourself doing the thing that you want. So
Yes.
you want to live in fear and just stay there and not get to see that? Or do you want to live in fear while for the short time while you do pursue your goals, so that way, you get to see that version of yourself and get to
Yes.
that dream actualize. And that's
Yes, I feel like that's literally the section in my life where I'm at right now is because, I've tried to be consistent and I've done things here and there, but I've never like given that full go because I've been so afraid of like what happens after this. And I feel like it's really easy to get debilitated and stuck in that position of just not doing it because it's comfortable. But we have to break out of that. We
yeah.
have to.
You do. You really do. Even if you don't, only know the next thing, you have to do that first step. So like if you know you want to start a business, you know you want another job, but you have no idea, the next thing you need to do. If it's just a Google search, find a career or like talk to
Yes.
another business owner that you admire. And that's the only thing you need to know is the next step. Like you don't have to
Yes.
worry about everything else, because as you take that next step, then the next step will be there. Yeah, you don't have to
I
have
feel like,
all the courage, just a little bit enough to get there.
yeah, I feel like as we progress, we as humans are so much on our instant gratification. Like we see things and we expect them to happen right away just because of technology and how we're raised and everything like that. We expect things to happen immediately. And I think us not knowing what's going to happen moving forward is so scary for us. You have to get out of that tunnel vision of seeing the goal because sometimes it doesn't happen exactly the way you want it to, but it happens.
Yeah, yeah.
And do you think there's a correlation between like mindset and finding the right job, and how so?
Oh my. Yeah. I knew these questions. Just
Since
I'm
we're
hearing
in here.
I'm just hearing, I'm like, yeah, of course. I think with everything, just your inner world affects your outer world along every single part of your journey, along everything that you do in life, the things that you think are going to be reflected outward. So when it comes to your career, if you have an internal belief that you have to prove yourself in your job, or you have to stick with hard things and you can't leave a hard situation, which I think is a lot I'm just speaking from experience because I've definitely thought this in the past and have seen a lot of other people kind of replicate that, then you will end up staying in a particular situation trying to prove that I can do this hard job, or I'm going to prove them wrong, that I'm going to like, even if they're not promoting you, I'm going to stick around and I'm going to get that promotion and then I'll show them or whatever. And that's unnecessary. And, you're draining yourself in a lot of cases. But in a lot of different examples, I think that how you think about your job, how you think about yourself definitely is reflected. But if you can turn that around into a positive way, like if you have positive thoughts about yourself, what do you think that you deserve? Do you deserve to enjoy the things that you do? Do you deserve to have the freedom to explore your career? Then you will take action. So thought is going to inform your behavior. You're thinking, yeah, I think I want to learn how to be more creative. I want to gain this skill. Then if you think that enough, it doesn't really take a lot, then you're going to want to do a Google search and figure out how you can do that creative thing. And then you're going to talk to more people about it. And you're going to have more opportunities to explore whatever interest or passions that you have. And those opportunities will turn into to more opportunities. And then it's going to kind of be an internal. Then you're going to be like, well, look at all these experiences or look at all these people that I'm meeting, or all these opportunities that are coming my way. So yeah, it definitely informs your job and your career in a really, really big way. And I wanted to write a blog post about specifically the correlation between your self-worth and your income, like how you yourself and how much money you're then able to make. So I think that'll be a really interesting topic.
Yes, tune in, guys. What is your website called so we can tune in with you?
Yeah. So my business and my website. So my business is called The Evergreen Blueprint, which I think ties into another question that you asked me. But so I called it The Evergreen Blueprint because like my goal as a career strategist isn't just to help people strategize their careers. I want people to learn how to be able to navigate their careers on their own. I think all the things that I've learned, like I want to literally put the things I've learned into the brains of others. So yes, resume writing is important. Yes, it's important to do your personal brand, but ultimately when it comes to your mindset, that's a separate thing. You can learn the skills and it's a very topical, but you need to know within yourself, within your heart and your brain
Yes.
that you can. So I want to transfer the knowledge, but then be able to guide people and like have that foundation that they know that they can do it every time. So I can help them with this transition, but I don't want them to just feel like, oh, she's helped me with this, but what about the next time? I want them to know like they are the ones in control of their own
Yes.
career, if you want to get a job or if you want to start your business. But it starts there, starts with knowing that you can.
I feel
So
like, yeah, you're teaching them how to fish essentially. You really want them to
yeah,
know that
yeah,
they can do it on their own, but you're
yeah.
going to show them first and then you're like, "Hey, okay, I'm
Yeah,
letting
yeah.
you go now. You got this."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's my goal. So that's why I call it the Evergreen Blueprint. It's not just about your career. I always say how someone does one thing is how they do everything. Right. So
Yes.
I think a lot of patterns, this is a little bit off tangent, but a lot
No,
of
it's okay.
patterns that like you have internally or in your interpersonal relationships, the relationship you have with yourself, it's reflected into your professional relationships. Right. So like I have definitely been an anxious attachment person,
Me too.
and that's shown up in my professional relationship, in my one of my jobs that I had, and in the dynamic I had with my manager. You have this relationship with yourself that that it's replicated in those relationships professionally, and yeah, correcting it is the way through. Yeah,
Unlearning.
yeah, it's it's more unlearning than it is learning. It's
Yes,
just
it definitely
we're just
is. I agree.
returning back to self. Like we aren't anxiety. We aren't that. We are capable of doing everything that we have a
Yes.
desire to do. We just have to let go of the fear and let go of the anxiety that comes with it.
I feel like now that I have like did a lot of inner work within myself, just my boundaries and how I come across to people and how assertive I am now has completely changed. And not just in my personal life, but also in my work life. If there's
Yeah.
conflict, I would just be like, "Oh, I'm just not gonna say anything. Like it's fine." And if I got taken advantage of, it was the same way at work, and I would just let it go. But now no, I have boundaries. I know what I'm worth. I know what I deserve. And
Yeah.
that goes in the same way when you're looking for a career, but also while you're in the career, just
Oh yeah.
knowing that, yeah, knowing what you're worth and knowing what you deserve moving forward with the company as well, or just in any job with a client or however you work, basically.
Yeah. And talking about boundaries real quick, I think that's a
Talk
good
about it.
point. It's a good point because having those boundaries, like once you learn, like I used to think I had good boundaries, but now I'm like, oh, wait, I didn't really have good boundaries. And it's not just with the personal relationships I've had romantically, but it's also platonically and it was professionally. Like my old boss expected a lot of things from me. She said because I didn't have children that I should have been expected to stay later and do all of these things, which is honestly yeah, it's honestly not, it's it's super unprofessional and inappropriate, but had I had better boundaries, that's something that I definitely should have spoke up for myself and said, hey,
Yes.
just because I don't have children doesn't mean that I should be expected to stay later. And that's just a small example. And that's something that can show up in a number of ways and keep you back from, actualizing what you want because you're compromising so much and you're allowing so much into your space, and you could be spending that energy on developing yourself, on finding out what you want, or just
Right.
having free time, having that mental space.
I feel like as like a brown person, just brown person in general, when you're working and you're trying to adhere to conflict, or you're trying to address something with an agreement, it can come off in type of way. Like, I get anxiety about how I come off when I confront people, because I'm like, I don't want to have to be put
Yeah.
into that stereotype. You know what
I
I
used to
mean?
be so afraid of being like the angry Black woman.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like,
So
I didn't want to be put in that box.
yeah, just
So
a
I
little
went the
bit.
opposite
And then
way.
you're overcorrecting.
Yes.
Yeah. You think, okay, well, to avoid being seen as the angry Black woman or angry brown woman, then I'm going to let them overstep my boundaries so they can
Walk
see I'm
all
being,
over me.
look how accommodating I'm being. And, I'm not going to be a great, but it's not helpful. It's not helpful to them and it's not helpful to us. It's them that need to get over their biases or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, totally, totally get that.
I definitely agree with that. I just wanted to touch on that because I feel like it's really important. When do you know you've done your job successfully? Or what do you think?
I touch on that a little bit in that, like,
We can touch in it more if
self-sufficient.
you want to. If you feel like you have more to say, it's up to you.
Yeah, my goal is really just for people to be self-sufficient. I think that one of the primary reasons and drivers for me starting my business was how much I saw the job market changing. And I feel like I didn't want Black and brown people to like be left behind in like mass, I want them to have access to those opportunities and for the capital and the money, right? So I would just want more Black and brown people to be aware and to be knowledgeable about how to make those transitions on their own and how to make more money and how to change their lives on their own. As
Right.
I'm doing it too, because I was like, I guess I'm doing it on my, because I've always worked as a career coach underneath the umbrella of, a university or a business. And now I'm like, it's just me now. And I'm telling you directly, no middleman.
Yes, and we support that. We support that so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And then the last question, I always ask my guests this, or at least I try to, if I remember.
Mhm.
But it is, what does spirituality mean to you?
I think that spirituality, to me at least, it means like that I think that it's something is bigger than just us. To me, I think that everyone is connected. I think that everything happens for a reason. Throughout life, you get to learn a lot of different experiences and we can utilize them. We can let it teach us how we can learn ourselves better and then utilize it to love ourselves better and then love everyone else better. That's really the simplest way I can put it.
Right.
I feel like I've definitely become more spiritual in my experience.
But the reason that I usually ask that question is mostly because I feel like everybody has a different definition based on like their own experience in life
Mhm.
on what it means to them. But I feel like everybody has some connection to something bigger than themselves, even if it's not a physical definition or representation. We all have some connection with each other. And I feel like we all have like different energies. And
Mhm.
I think it's important that everybody has their own separate definition.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that, you know, we have to impose our own definitions on anyone. So I'm
Oh,
glad that
no.
I think that people are kind of becoming more understanding of that, as spirituality is becoming more of a thing, if that's
Yeah.
what I mean. Like
Yeah,
I
no,
think that
like
it's
it's
more
trend. It's
fair.
kind of trending
Yeah, it's
now,
kind of
which is
trending.
strange.
I think that the more we know, the more we know we don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I think it's fair to leave things just like, hey, this is bigger than me, but here's what I can do. And this is the impact I can make and still have like authority in that, still have like, you know, like some
Feel like they have power and control
yeah,
over their
power.
life and their situation.
Exactly. We still have so much power, even if
Yeah.
the universe is as big as it is. Like we have
Yes, of course.
massive amounts of power to change our lives, to change other people's lives. And I think that our job is to just actualize it, to love ourselves fully and to accept ourselves fully. And that's how we learn to love and accept everyone else fully and be the best version of ourselves and help other people do that too.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful definition. I agree with you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for holding space. And this conversation was great. And
yeah, I am so happy that you came on, and I really appreciate it. Like, thank you for taking time out of your day to come on here and talk about all this good stuff.
Of course, of course. I'll be happy to chat more if you ever want to. And thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into our Arlandria Speaks podcast. I hope this episode has helped expand your mind on a deeper level. If you're loving this podcast, please make sure to tune in every Tuesday for a new episode, and please leave a review for this podcast to help me reach more people looking for inner expansion just like you. See you guys next week. Peace.